it has been 11 years since I last took measurements and made him a pattern, and his body has increased in musculature and adipose tissue. So, and I would like him to have a new farsetto in time for an event we're attending in Europe in about a week and a half. So another crazy Contessa project for the win. So today we're just going to be focusing on drafting this pattern. We've already taken the measurements. Stay tuned for a video coming out on the process of measuring before drafting a pattern. And so now the question is to take these beautifully, carefully scribed measurements and turning them into a thing that will then become a garment. So I'm going to be keeping it on the workspace, so you're hardly going to see me. You're just going to mostly see my hands. So I'm sorry for those of you who are tuning in just for this visage. By the way, I don't really like looking at myself anyway, so I'm happy if you're only seeing my hands. So you'll mostly be seeing my hands, and it will be hard for me to answer questions because camera angle, I will not really be able to see the screen. I'm sorry if I miss your questions and comments, but I will try to get to them by periodically stopping and checking the chat. So let's dive right into another insane creative Contessa project. Crazy creative Contessa project, but CCCP, right? Okay, to the work area. Okay, so I am working on actually, I'm recycling another pattern. This was a Jornea pattern, or half of a Jornea draping, a mock-up, and I no longer need this half. So it's a really nice heavy fabric, and I always like to do my drafting and mock-ups in a heavy fabric because you want it to be sturdy and you don't want it to stretch. So hence we are recycling a thing that for which I otherwise had no use. And in fact, this was upcycled from a curtain for which I no longer had use. I'm wondering why there's a shadow. What is that shadow? I don't know what that shadow is. That is very interesting. Oh, we've got light sources in all directions. I apologize for any strange shadows. This really is an impromptu live session, so forgive me, dear viewer. Okay, so in essence, I'm going to be sketching out a farsetto shape, and I'll just draw this here so you get an idea of basically what the front panel is going to look like. And this is vaguely based on the farsetto of Diego di Cavaniglia, a count and condottiero who died in 1481, I think it was. He died at the ripe old age of 21. So basically, this is the farsetto pattern for the front panel. That's what the front panel is going. The two front pieces will look like this, more or less. And then the back panel will look sort of similar. Albeit it will have a deeper neckline in the back to accommodate for that scoopy neckline into which a collar will be inset, a high collar will be inset, right? And this is the back, in essence. Apparently my ability to draw while on camera sucks. Anyway, those are the two pieces we're going for, and then the sleeves will be in two. We're going to have a kind of, that will be the upper sleeve. This is how it looks in Diego di Cavaniglia's, and this will be the lower sleeve in half, basically. Right, and so you can see that we're going to have something that fits the elbow so that when you're bending, or when it's bent or unbent, it will still fit around the elbow, sort of allowing for a nice fit, but also still movement will be allowed. And then we also have some skirts, and the skirts on Diego's are very interesting because they actually get longer at the hips and shorter in the back. So this is what the back peplum will look like on both sides. And then in the front, actually I forgot, so the front doesn't actually have a separate peplum. It's actually, there's actually a false seam is put in here this piece is cut as one. The two front panels are cut as one piece, and there's a false seam that's put in there. So we'll be incorporating that idea into this. So the front piece will actually be more or less like this, and the back piece will look like this. Yeah. Take a moment to check if there are any questions. You can pop the chat up there. All chat messages. Okay. Apparently there are no messages. There are no comments yet. So proceeding onward. Okay. Maybe I can push this up a little bit higher. Okay. Apologize, dear viewer. You might get a little queasy. I'm about to raise the camera up and see if that actually works a little better. First time doing this sort of thing under the public's watchful eye, but I thought it might make an interesting live experience. So, okay, that's a little bit better. Right, so now that you see the basic shapes we're going for, and then the collar, the back of the collar kind of looks like this. Back of the collar is kind of going to look like that, and then you'll have two little front pieces that will basically meet in the front, and they will look something like this on both sides. They'll attach there at the collar, and they'll look like that on both sides. So yeah, that's where we're going with this. Okay, so of course, whenever you're using fabric for any purpose, make sure that you've got the grain in the right direction. What we don't want to have happen is for there to be bias stretch created by putting up and down this way across the bias. So I always make sure that everything is horizontal and perpendicular as far as the grain of the fabric goes, so that we don't get any unwanted stretch. So, okay, moving on. We've got move the camera a little bit better. Okay, so basically drafting a pattern is literally taking measurements and turning them into a pattern, and this is basically geometry. So in the sense that, I guess I can get my face on if I put the camera all the way up there. Draping as a style of patterning garments didn't come about until the early 20th century, when fabric got cheap enough to just waste it that way. So before that, patterns were drafted. And actually, tailors in the Middle Ages had measuring tapes kind of like this, except without the measurements. But they were paper tapes or vellum tapes, and they would actually mark on the tape, just mark exactly what each measurement was and make a little note, so that each client had their own literal measuring tape with their own measurements marked on it, and then that would be stored in a cabinet in the tailor's shop. That's my goal. So sometime is to actually cut out, I've got some vellum, cut out a long strip of it and start using that for taking measurements, and use my silver pen maybe to make marks on the vellum. Anyway, that's how medieval measuring worked. Modern measuring, we have tapes and we have notebooks, and I think probably the medieval method is actually more efficient. Anywho, so moving on, we come here, and I'm actually going to start with the front panel. And so, excuse me, the first measurement I have there, and I'm going to start with the back panel. Yeah, I'm going to start with the back panel. So, you know, basically we're going to start with a kind of trapezoid of sorts, and then we're going to give that trapezoid shape. So start by taking my nape of neck to waist measurement, which is somewhere amongst this scribble. Let me see. Yeah, there it is. Collar to small of back. Okay, 14 inches. And you'll notice I've got this curve there, so I have to take that into account to make sure I have enough for the actual waist. So we've got 14 inches, and I'm just going to mark that on both sides of the tape, actually. And I'm going to use the tape also to help line up, because the good thing about this fabric is the grain is very, very, very visible. And so I can really try to keep this straight. Yeah. So 14 there, 2 up here. Okay. So I've got some marks. And so basically this area is going to be the center back, which is kind of off camera. Sorry, still figuring things out about how to position the cameras on this one. Okay, so we've got the 14-inch mark, okay? And we're not going to put any curves or anything like that in yet, because we've got other measurements to lay out first, and then we can start playing connect the dots. In fact, there's a measurement I need, and I have to wait for the condottiero to return, I realized. And that's because when you measure the circumference of your body, yes, you get a circumference, but here's the deal. The front half of your body is not the same measurement is not just half of your circumference. The front half of your body is actually generally going to be longer than the back half of your body in any given measurement. So your chest measurement on the front half of your body, especially if you're a woman, is going to be significantly bigger than the chest measurement on the back half of your body. So you can't just cut it in half. And I forgot to actually take the measurements in halves. I took circumferences. So I gotta wait for my condottiero to come back. Yeah. Okay. So moving on, got that, and then we've got, yeah, actually I can't really proceed much further without that measurement. Sorry, this won't be quite the action-packed live stream that it can sometimes be. Let's see. Got that. Yeah, I've got a couple more measurements I needed to have taken. Yeah, I needed to have taken the point of shoulder point of shoulder seam over to center of neck to be able to get the distance from here to here. And I didn't measure that. And of course he's gone. Of course. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to put a pin in this. If you're watching this in retrospect, I hope it wasn't too boring. It was kind of an experiment to see if I could do this, how I would need to position cameras and that sort of thing. And I find that actually being live while doing this is kind of distracting my thought process, because I'm trying to engage with you and engage with my thoughts, and that's not quite working. So yeah, maybe if it hadn't been, I don't know, 3 years since I last drafted a pattern, I'd be able to just rack it out. But it's been a while, so I've kind of got to reinvent the wheel a little bit. Okay, guys. Well, if you've watched, I hope it wasn't a waste of time. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Otherwise, until next time, guys, stay creative. Bye.